So what will it take for him to flip the script and bounce back from a dismal first appearance? Ari Fleischer, of course, is former White House press secretary, Fox News contributor, and he's been through a campaign or two. Ari, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm not sure anybody was expecting, there were some people trying to lower expectations. He didn't really have much competition as New York City mayor, didn't do that great in debates, but there was a wide assumption that was obviously wrong, that he was going to prepare and be ready for some obvious attacks. What went wrong?
I think that two things went wrong for the mayor. Number one, and I've seen this in a lot of smart people before, they say, I got this, I got this. I've been the mayor of a really tough city. I deal with the nation's most hostile press corps. I've got tough, obnoxious opponents. I'm ready. And they fool themselves because you're not ready for a presidential debate until you've actually been in one. The second is he doesn't take questions at town hall meetings. All the other candidates are out there getting a regular barrage of questions from citizens. It sharpens you up. It makes you think things through. It shows you your vulnerabilities, and you have to perform over time and get better over time. He doesn't do that. He doesn't take questions, so he stopped taking batting practice. He never took batting practice, and he hit himself with his own pitch.
So what does he need to do to fix it Tuesday?
He needs to shine. He needs to be articulate. He needs to come out on the offensive. He needs to show why he is different from Bernie, why he's different from all the others. What are his ideas that differentiate him as a Democrat to lead America? And then he's got to play better defense. When he's attacked over non-disclosures, when he's attacked over stop and frisk, what are his answers? And that's where he was just woefully unprepared. One final little point, Ed, look your opponents in the eye. I mean, Mayor Bloomberg just looked off into the distance. He looked imperious above it all as his opponents looked him in the eye. You look weak if you can't look someone in the eye.
Also maybe dismissive as a billionaire that you're not even bother engaging them directly. You also bring us to another important point when you say differentiate yourself from the others on the stage. He did, in fairness, try to do that on capitalism versus socialism and take that directly to Bernie Sanders. But Kim Strassel puts her finger on something interesting in the Wall Street Journal this morning. She says this field is not lacking in progressives. It's lacking courage. If Mr. Bloomberg wants voters to rally around him, he needs to give them a reason, not an echo. The point being that on a whole bunch of issues, he's trying to play in the moderate lane, but he's moving left, further and further left on Wall Street reform and other things where he used to be more centrist. So he's not showing courage, she says.
Yeah, it's a great column and a great point. Mike Bloomberg, if he had stuck to really being a true conservative fiscal Democrat, I think he could have opened up a real differentiation with Bernie Sanders.
We learned today that a top intelligence community official told Congress last week that Russia is already taking steps to interfere in the 2020 election. The briefing indicated that Russia has a preference for President Trump, someone they believe they can work with. What's your reaction?
Not surprised at all. Look, I was deeply involved with the intelligence community when I was when I was vice president. We knew it then. They've been involved. They continue to be involved. I guarantee you they're involved. And the fact is that I expect whoever did that briefing is about to be fired.
Do you have confidence in the person that the president wants to be the new DNI, who's currently the ambassador to Germany?
No, he has absolutely zero experience in intelligence. He's going to be the ambassador to Germany. No, I'm not about personally. He may be a fine guy, but he has zero experience, and they expect him to be both the acting head of all the intelligence, not just CIA, all the intelligence agencies, the director of national intelligence, and the ambassador to Germany at the same time, and with no experience.
If you were president right now, what would you do to try to protect election security?
Well, what I would do is what I did internationally. I joined an international organization headed by the former head of NATO to work out an agreement that everyone running for office, both in Europe and the United States, would take the pledge that they would not use any disinformation, period, in an election, and two, any foreign power that provided information or tried to get engaged in an electoral process in any one of the countries, it would be reported immediately. And that's what I would do. And I'm the only one who's taken that pledge so far. Now, in fairness, I'm not sure the rest of my Democratic colleagues are much as aware of it. I've raised it several times. But that's a pledge we all should take.
Received a briefing last week. about new meddling efforts, and lawmakers learned about the potential threat one day before the president did. That caused Mr. Trump to, quote, blow his stack. But the Kremlin denies any involvement. Russian President Vladimir Putin has dismissed all accusations of election interference. The president's also rejecting these findings from his own intelligence officials. On Twitter, he called it, quote, another misinformation campaign being launched by Democrats. Well, this all comes as the president makes major changes to his intelligence community. Earlier this week, Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph Maguire was removed from his post. Maguire testified in the House impeachment inquiry back in September after allegations that he illegally withheld the whistleblower complaint on Ukraine. Well, the president replaced Maguire with Richard Grenell. He's a U.S. ambassador to Germany. But Grenell will only be serving as acting intel chief, which according to U.S. law means he needs to be replaced in 210 days. The president is considering names for the permanent role that includes House Judiciary Ranking Member Doug Collins. However, the congressman says he's not interested in the job because he's running for Senate in Georgia. Well, for the latest on the intelligence community, I want to bring in Paula Reed and Catherine Herridge. Paula's a CBS News White House correspondent. Catherine's a CBS News senior investigative correspondent. Catherine, I want to start with that briefing. What more do we know about the intelligence on Russia?
Well, Rena, good afternoon. My contacts are reporting some with direct knowledge of that briefing that lawmakers were told by the briefers that they assessed that Russia was meddling in the upcoming election and that the goal was to help President Trump in 2020. And one lawmaker specifically said, we need to see or know about the underlying evidence and whether the briefers had what's called SIGINT or signals intelligence. These are things like telephone intercepts. And I'm told the briefers had none to offer at that time. And the reason that matters is that signals intelligence, or SIGINT, is often used as the foundation to understand the intent of the adversary. So what we know about this briefing and the events at that briefing is also consistent with other reporting we've received here at CBS News from other sources who describe the briefing as offering weak or thin intelligence to support these assessments, Rena.
You know, Catherine, just a few days ago, there were 5 top officials, including Attorney General William Barr, the FBI Director Christopher Wray. They wrote an op-ed in USA Today, and they said this, I'm going to quote directly here, "We have yet to identify any activity designed to prevent voting or change votes. However, we remain watchful of any malicious activities from cyber criminals and from foreign actors like Russia, China, and Iran." So, Catherine, is the intelligence briefing in the House at odds with what these top officials are saying publicly?
Well, what we've known for some months is that Russia continues to run these information or what they call malign foreign influence operations that are designed to amplify issues that divide Americans. And the FBI Director Christopher Wray, who is also one of the authors of that op-ed, testified to these issues earlier this month. And I think it goes, Rena, to a fundamental, misunderstanding of the Russian objectives with these information operations. I've talked to current and former intelligence officials, and I've been working and reporting in this space for 2 decades. And they tell me that Russia and other adversaries, their goal is to undermine confidence in American institutions and American democracy. So the office of the president, law enforcement and the Justice Department, the integrity of the voting system. So
intelligence officials last week warned lawmakers about Russian efforts to interfere in the 2020 election to help re-elect President Trump. That, according to a former intelligence official briefed on the matter. The news first reported by the New York Times. The election security briefing reportedly infuriated the president, who, according to the Times, fumed about the presence in the briefing of Adam Schiff, the Democrat who spearheaded the impeachment effort against him. Schiff, a frequent target for President Trump.
These people are vicious. Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person.
The Washington Post reports, according to people familiar with the matter, that the president was angry with his acting director of national intelligence, Joseph Maguire, and gave him a dressing down over what the president perceived as disloyalty by Maguire's staff. The Post says the president erroneously believed the briefing was given exclusively to Schiff and that the information would be used against him by Democrats. All of it, according to a former U.S. senior official, costing Maguire his job. He's been replaced temporarily by Richard Grenell, the U.S. ambassador to Germany and a fierce Trump advocate who has no intelligence experience. The president overnight thanking Grenell for his service in a tweet, adding he'll be nominating a new candidate for the job soon. It comes as President Trump hints he's prepared to pardon a key figure in the 2016 Russia investigation. His longtime friend and former advisor, Roger Stone.
I'm following this very closely, and I want to see it play out to its fullest because Roger has a very good